Good morning. Responsibility. Throughout this series, we've been saying that as human beings, we have the freedom to act and to react to life. We've looked at our responsibility, our ability to respond to God through prayer. Next, we switch to our responsibility with our money. God puts money in our hands, and we're stewards of it. How we respond to the money he gives us greatly impacts our faith. Last week, we looked at giving in the light of eternity. As Catholics, we believe that this material world is not all that there is. Whatever we give to God and build his kingdom is actually an investment in our own future, the eternal one. Today I want to address some confusion about why we give our money to God. That we've been in Luke chapter 21 for our gospel readings, and we begin with a little background to the gospel that we heard today. So we start with that chapter that Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. So Jesus is outside the temple on one of the last days of his life, and here's how he's spending his time: watching what people are giving in their worship offering. First thing he sees are some rich people making their offering, and then he saw a poor widow put in 2 copper coins. There's this big discrepancy. The rich who gave great amounts of wealth, and then the poor widow. She gave very little, 2 cents basically, but it was everything that she had. In Luke's gospel, we oftentimes see people in completely opposite situations. And then there's a reversal about everything we would assume or think true. We think obviously that the wealthy people have given more to God than this poor widow. But that's not what Jesus says or how he sees it. Truly, I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for they contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, gave everything that she had. So it's not the amount, it's the percentage that Jesus notices. And next Luke writes, and this is where we begin our gospel today, and as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with noble stones and offerings, said, as for these things which you see, the days will come when there will not be left one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. In Jesus' time, the temple was undergoing a massive renovation. Would have been among the most important buildings in the world. Jesus rightly predicted that it was all coming down. In 70 AD, the Romans pretty much destroyed and incinerated the temple. Yet Jesus commended the poor widow for giving to the temple, even though he knew that it was all coming down. Why? The giving that Jesus is commending isn't about the temple. It's about worship. A worship offering isn't giving to a need, it's giving to God. A worship offering is about giving to God as part of our worship. This is why we have an offering at Mass. We offer what God has given us back to God. Some people don't give to the offering at St. Peter, and the reason usually they give is that the church doesn't need my money. The impact we have as a church is greatly determined by the finances we have to pay our staff, to run programs, maintain the campus, fund outreach and service to those less fortunate in our community. So yes, we need the money to operate. We meaning all of us as the church community of St. Peter. But more important than our need for money is our need to give. Giving is not really about whether the church needs your money. Giving is primarily about your faith and trust in God. Giving is about our need to give. Give wisely and invest in places where your giving can make the greatest impact. But give, because it's good for our souls. The number one competitor to God for our heart is our money and our possessions. That's what Jesus said. And the opposite is also true. Nothing increases our faith in God more than giving our money and possessions back to Him. The number one competitor to God for my heart is my money and my possessions. So here's a simple 3-step strategy for giving. Number 1, make giving a priority. Number 2, give a percentage. And 3, give progressively over time. So number 1, make giving a priority. Like the poor widow, give out of our substance, not out of the leftovers or our pocket change. If you don't already use our online giving platform, try it out. It's a great way to make giving a priority. It's very easy to do now on our new St. Peter app. But secondly, give a percentage. Pick a percentage of your income and give it back to God. And start with some intentional number. Give 5% or 3% or 1% or 0.5%. Just give a percentage of your income as a form of worship. The biblical number is 10%, the tithe, but start somewhere. Just as every one of us is called to show up and fully participate in the Mass, called to say the prayers, to sing, to respond, and are also individually called to fully participate in the offering. Don't approach worship empty-handed. Maybe you've been on the edge of the pool when it comes to tithing. Here's a challenge for all of us. Tithe one paycheck and see what happens. I don't know what it is or why it is, but there's something very special about the tithe. And finally, look to give progressively more over time. For some of us, this is where we're at right now. Everybody should be giving in our place of worship as an act of worship. Every one of us has a contribution worth making. Not one of us has a gift that is greater than the other. Every offering counts. It's not about the building fund or the school fund. It's about our need to give. Worship God with everything that you are and everything that you have, and everything in your life begins to change. This weekend is Commitment Sunday. But over the past week, all registered parishioners should have received a card in the mail asking you to make a commitment to increase our giving. Hopefully you've brought the commitment card to Mass with you today. That if not, that there are, like Leonardo said before Mass, that there's the white baskets that are on the edge of the pews there, that if you need one of the commitment cards to fill out, there's also pens and pencils that are in the white baskets there. We can take a few moments to fill out the card or to review our card if we already brought it to Mass. That in a few moments here, we'll be asked to come forward and to drop off our commitment cards in the basket, and as they represent our worship offering and commitment for the upcoming year. If you need more time to pray or think about your commitment, you can drop it off after Mass in the basket, in the offertory basket next week, or to send it in or bring it into the parish office during the week. But it is important for all of us to fill out a card and to return it. May we respond with all of our ability to God's many blessings in our lives.